Hello and welcome to the Let's Talk Azure podcast with your host Sam Foote.
And Armstrong.
If you're new here, we're a pair of Azure and Microsoft 365 focused IT security professionals. It's episode 11 of season 6. Alan and I recently had a discussion around the new announcements in Microsoft Secure, a Microsoft event dedicated to security announcements. Here are a few things that we covered. New security Copilot agents, data security investigations, innovations and changes in Microsoft Entra, and detection and protection for emerging AI threats. We've noticed that a large number of you aren't subscribed. If you do enjoy our podcast, please do consider subscribing. It would mean a lot to us for you to show your support to the show. It's a really great episode, so let's get started. Hey Alan, how are you this week?
Hey Sam, not doing too bad. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Really good. How's the house move coming along?
Yeah, it's really good. Unfortunately, my office was destroyed a little bit last week, so we couldn't podcast. So apologies for that. It was good the week before, and then we had to make some changes. So didn't
Nice.
help.
Well, you could have been like one paintbrush in hand, I suppose, right? And on the mic with the other, right?
Yeah, it could have been. I could have been in a room with 15 doors to paint, yes, whilst podcasting. Hopefully, I think I've painted the last door now. I think it's just all going back on, as it was for this podcast. I had to get the door on my office put back on before. Otherwise, we might have had an issue this week.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay, yeah, nice. No, that's really cool. That's really good. Right, so this week, Microsoft Secure, Alan.
Yeah,
I would say I don't know what's the best way to describe Microsoft Secure. It's more of I don't know.
It's a mini event, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I didn't want to I didn't want to undersell
Downplay
it.
it.
Yeah,
No.
I didn't want to. I wanted it feels like a ninja type event. Do you know what I mean? But I was gonna say ninja, but then it's not like ninja training. But anyway, so it's definitely not as big as other events, but it is wholly security focused, right? And it feels like I don't know. It feels like an interval event and update, along the way to Ignite, if that makes sense, right? Because we're 6 months out from Ignite, I suppose, so it's like a good halfway point, isn't it? Right, for a lot of these updates.
And sometimes when things are announced at Ignite, they take a little while to actually sort of come out into the public view, and some of the information is reiterating some of that and actually showing more of it as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like it's not a rehash at all. There is new announcements as well, but it's bringing it back into the light and showing you actually. We talked about this Ignite in a very high level because it was brand new. Now let's see some detail, and in the next coming months, you're going to see some of it, sort of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so we thought what we'd do is we'd just we'd go through the topics that Microsoft covered, give you a little bit of insight and any of our thoughts and initial sort of reactions to anything that is that's been talked about or been announced. So, well, what is the big theme for this year, Alan? I get the vibe of AI, and more AI, and then potentially some other security related things. But it does feel like that is the big play and push at Secure this year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it was last year at Secure that we seen security. I think it's Security Copilot was being released into the wild.
Yeah.
Around this time, so it's now the next. It feels like it's the next revision of that.
Yeah, and I put a note down about this because in the release from Microsoft, it starts off with 1 year ago we launched Microsoft Security Copilot, and it boggles my mind that was a year ago, right? Because wasn't it announced earlier than that? wasn't it? If I remember rightly, did we?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it was I think it might have been the Microsoft Secure before that. They
correct. Yeah,
announced it and showed some of it.
yeah,
Then at Ignite, they showed a bit more. And then, yeah, last year's 2024's Microsoft Secure is when they really, really showed it. It's not really words, but yeah, was able to demonstrate more of it. And then, yeah, like we said, it was then released in, I think it was like April, May time into public preview.
yeah, exactly. And one of the big standout features that we've had, this year from Secure is these 6 new agentic solutions that are applied to Security Copilot. So I thought it might be worth us just going through those agents that have been created, because they are tied to specific, use cases, and I would say, roles and responsibilities that people are having to deal with. Because I think that's the big play for Security Copilot, right? It's applying sort of machine speed at scale to scale out your operations team, right? Because of the amount of, I don't know, data and events and signals that teams have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Right? Is that a fair very high fair representation of Security Copilot?
Yeah, it's to assist. So in the name, same thing with Microsoft 365 Copilot. It's to assist security analysts in their day to day to, like you said, to increase the speed that they can do, certain tasks, things like that maybe they do all the time, or to help summarize an incident, etc. And yeah, these Microsoft, what they're calling, Security Copilot agents, are the next step on top to maybe actually take some of that work away from you completely.
Yeah, and I do. I must admit, for a product like Security Copilot, it does feel right to base a lot of this functionality, on a quotes agent model, if that makes sense, because of the different sort of roles and responsibilities that teams and their team members actually play. Right? I think it's quite a good way to group and organize functionality, that seems to make sense, to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first big one is the phishing triage agent in Microsoft Defender. So it triages phishing alerts to identify real cybersecurity threats, and also looking at false alarms and false positives. So it's there to provide easy to understand explanations for the decisions that it's made and how to improve detection, based on admin feedback that's given back. Um, I mean, from my personal experience, the administration of phishing reports, and sort of email security in general is a real challenge, right, for administrators. For the types of clients that I work with, it's a big part of their job role having to manage that, right? And it can be tricky to identify, what is real and what is not.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you've got to think about it. It depends on the size of the organization, because user reporting phishing attempts maybe in a 100 to or zero zero wouldn't be a company, but 1 to 500 user count organization might be, again, depends on how large your IT team is, and that might be the factor of it as well. But you may not see many people reporting at that point, especially if they're smaller. But
Yeah.
if you imagine 3,000, 6,000 user organization, they're probably getting 100, 200 a day of reporting, maybe. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, and
and
sorry to interject, Alan. I
yeah,
I worked with an organisation recently to get that enabled, and they weren't a large organisation, and I was absolutely stunned at the amount of like uptake that people were, um, after guidance had gone out to the end users, how much they were actually reporting back. They
mhm.
were actually they were actually following the guidance that they'd been given, right? And I think at scale, I don't think that is manageable and reasonable, is it? Because of the onslaught of, you know, the barrage
Yeah,
of phishing and spam that we all have to deal with, right? We know it's a race to the bottom of, just, tweaking sliders and thresholds to eventually block more and more, legitimate email and that gets caught in the crosshairs. So we do need a way to be able to, deal with these pretty quickly.
yeah, and like we said, or I don't know. I think we've done episode once on Defend for Office, but yeah, you can tweak it, and also the filtering, the machine learning, the filtering learns from your decisions as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it takes a while, but I think some of the statistics are that being able to triage, a reported phishing, email or alert can take up to 30 minutes manually. If if you do it, I'm going to say properly, but if you're not going to just skim it and see, nah, it's not kind of thing, because users might be reporting it incorrectly. So yeah, if something's doing that for you and making a decision if it's false positive, a false positive and that, then yeah, it's going to take a lot of time off people's plate, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think to your point of, quotes doing it properly, um, I, I just think some emails are so nuanced, right, that it's not immediately obvious, is it? And it takes a long time to comb through that information. So, yeah, I can definitely feel that there would be some benefit there, and it's something that people do literally day to day.
It's and it's there's the obvious phishing, there's the obvious false positives, and then you've got the bit in the middle. That's
Oh
the
yeah,
bit in the middle is the problem.
yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. Um. So sorry. Anything else on phishing, Agent Alan?
No, it, like we said, it sounds like it's going to be autonomous alongside it, and it's I think when it comes into preview, I don't know if it said actually, but it's going to be coming into a private and public preview soon
Okay.
for people to start using.
Okay. So now we move on to the next agent. The next one is an alert triage agent for data loss prevention and insider risk management. Those two products are part of the Purview data security and governance suite. And I've definitely seen this firsthand. I think a lot of people have at least attempted to enable like the out of box, data loss prevention, insider risk management templates and policies, and understanding. I sort of call this the refinement phase of understanding, what is real, what is not real in your environment, what you should be focused on. So again, we do, and it does take a long time. Well, no, I say a long time. There's just a lot of data that you could have to shift through to understand, and not being disrespectful for the tools that are available to you. Sometimes it requires you to go off platform in order to get that level of intelligence, right? So, I do really like the ability, what I'm reading here about the triage agents for DLP and insider risk management. You're going to get that explanation, that categorization, summarization, and be able to see that to help you fine tune your policies and procedures. So yeah, I think that's going to be I think that's going to really help adoption of that space.
Yeah, we know that, yeah, like you said, there are a lot of alerts and things like that can come out of the system quite quickly when you initially do it. So yeah, helping tweak that, or at least take the noise away from you and tell you which ones you need to look at.
Yeah, and what I like about this as well is, and I know we've had connectors for various different sort of, Defender and Purview solutions, right? We're getting more different roles and responsibilities in the organization into Security Copilot to utilize that. What's the best way of explaining it? Those SCUs are pooled, right? They're resources that, in theory, anybody with access can use that pool of resource, right? So we're getting a wider adoption here of different teams actively using it on a day-to-day perspective.
Yeah.
Which is really going to work well for the ROI conversation. Should we not procure? Is it valuable to us? It's adding extra value, but the cost is staying the same, if that makes sense, right? You could argue, was it valuable enough before? Blah blah blah. But we are seeing, new updates and changes, and the costs staying the same. The next one is the conditional access optimization agent. Again, conditional access policies can be complex to work through the nuance and complexity. Is that the fairest way of me saying how some people might have got their conditional access policies into a place? What if does work well, but it can't understand everything, can it?
No, and it might be that organizations have been very granular with their policies rather than...
That's a better way of saying
to have multiple policies, and then blinded by the amount of policies and not seeing the gaps where some other organizations have a blanket one which covers everything, but then it doesn't help be granular with it, sort of thing. The pros and cons to all that sort of stuff. So this looks like it's going to be good to help one, even initially just optimize conditional access, but two, to make sure that any new SaaS apps, things like that, are always included.
The gaps.
Or new areas. Making sure everyone is doing some form of conditional access. So
because it is so easy to not be inclusive in that way with those policies, right? It is it's quite an easy trap to fall into, isn't it? So if you've got something else sort of in a positive way looking over your shoulder and just giving you some extra peace of mind, that is a great benefit.
Well, it's just even with organization changes, things like that, might change how something happens, if that makes sense. So exclusions are put in place temporarily, left in. We'll see that stuff.
Okay, then the next one, the vulnerability remediation agent. I didn't really get this one, to be totally honest with you, Alan. Only from the fact of it kind of sounded to me like it was what the portal's already doing anyway, instead of like ranking and assessing risk. Do you have any sort of thoughts on the vulnerability remediation agent?
So the idea of this one is to help. So let's just work backwards a little bit. So organizations, with vulnerability, information, be it, coming from the various products, we'll talk about Defender for Endpoints vulnerability management in this stance. But, when you've got that list of, ones to do, vulnerability to resolve, things like that, yes, the portals will tell you which ones are important, but the problem will be is that you might have, I don't think anyone would, but say that you got 20 criticals, vulnerabilities. How do you then determine the priority within those 20? Based on device counts, based on the severity of it, or the type. Well, I've said severity, but the sub severity, if there is anything, where it's being used, where it's being used in the wild, that kind of stuff. I think this is the idea of this one. It's going to collect all that sort of information for you to be able to identify which ones you should really be tackling. And I think also this is coming into, I think what I read was that it's also coming into the Intune side. So this isn't necessarily from a security perspective. This might be a sec admin perspective to say, hey, these are vulnerabilities found. you need to start patching them.
Yeah,
Well,
because I suppose there is a lot of like nuance that we provide when we're looking at like an organization's sort of vulnerability posture, if that makes sense, right? And because you do like naturally sort of go to hunt for vulnerabilities that make like the most sense to look at first, right? And the portals do give you some relatively good guidance, but I assume that this agent's going to give you that guidance in a like relatively opinionated and natural language way, right? So like a organization can say, "Hey, what are the top 10 vulnerabilities I should focus on first?" And it's going to give you should focus on like XYZ because of ABC, right? And without having to sort of sift through and have a lot of that, knowledge in your head, I suppose.
yeah, and I think it's the exposure to the Intune side, the management, the device management plane, rather than the security,
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
GRC sort of side. It's letting admins know, hey, you need to, you've been told by security to patch 10 vulnerabilities. Well, I'm going to do the easiest one first,
Yeah.
from their side. I've got 10 that are critical. I'm going to do the easy one, where this is going to be saying, no, you need to do this one because this has got all devices are covered, so you need to deal with it.
Yeah. No, that is completely right. And anything you can do there that is more sort of preemptive and and real time is going to help you a lot there, right? Because if you can get that admin side, on that cycle, being less reactive, then that can be very beneficial, right? Especially if a computer's, giving the the guidance
And
instead of a person.
And can you imagine? I know we'll sort of dive into that. I mean, we've done quite a lot of time, I think, already just on these bits. But can you imagine if that agent, because some of the other ones are fully autonomous almost, that with the like Intune suite in the enterprise package management, it could actually go and build the packages for you or deploy them, get them ready for you. Is that V2 of it?
Yeah,
Who
that's
knows?
true. Yeah.
This is
It's going to be
V1.
out
This
the
is telling
job.
you how to do it.
Are we just talking about, are these agents going to become, you know, Alan Armstrong agent? Is that what it's going to be?
No, bear in mind that you got others providers out there like Patch My PC that can
True.
do that for you.
True.
So
True. Yeah.
this
This is a gap more than a. I'm not saying this isn't new technology, but this technical problem has been solved by other people before, hasn't it? In a different way, right? Not in the same. Yeah, 100%. Okay. And the last sort of, I'll say, first party agent is the threat intelligence briefing agent. So this is where it essentially automatically curates up to the date context specific intelligence tailored to your organization's profile and your attack surface. So it operates autonomously in the background, and it obviously taps into Microsoft's threat intelligence resources, which it allows you to create prioritized reports in very little time. And the creation of reports and summarization is really where this technology really shines. So I'd love to see one of these, threat intelligence briefings. That seems like it would be a really, powerful thing for teams.
Yeah, and don't forget, Security Copilot. You could ask it to sort of create that report using the the standalone version, but you've got to know what you're asking. Specific things. This is doing it for you. This is looking at like it says, the latest threats, the latest intel on you and in your type of organization. That'd probably be quite difficult to write a prompt or prompt book to collect all that data and keep it up to date with what you need to ask it.
Yeah, and are these agents just really sophisticated prompt books? Is that what they're managing? Is that the content that they're managing here and just sort of giving it to you on a plate when you say it like that, right? but at least it's wrapped up now. You don't have to go and build it yourself, do you?
It's not just that. If it is, I mean, again, I don't know, exactly what the back end is on these, but it'd probably be a mixture of various things. But I think the value in it is that it's always the third party, or Microsoft are updating it.
Oh yeah, it's not your responsibility, is it?
Yeah,
you pay your money and you access this like intellectual property, right? And this solution, right? That's the major benefit of it, is that you don't have to say to your team, hey, take all your existing processes, you do your intelligence report day to day, right? Go and build a a set of prompts which will replicate what you do. It's like, oh no, just replace that process with this agent, and we've tweaked and tuned it, to how we see fit, basically. And it gives you an opinion, doesn't it? Some people don't want that opinion, and they still have the ability to build their prompts. But if they do want an off-the-shelf, just run with it process, then they've got it, haven't they? There are also third-party solutions that Microsoft's called out. So the likes of OneTrust, BlueVoyant, Fletch. There's loads of them, and there are loads of wider partner integrations in the ecosystem. For instance, BlueVoyant have got a SecOps tooling agent to assess your security operations center and the state of your controls to make recommendations to optimize your security operations. Is there any other third-party capabilities, Alan, that you just wanted to call out?
I think the OneTrust one seems interesting around the privacy breach response. So I'll be able to analyze that side of things, and then also checking your regulatory requirements.
Yeah.
So, if you've had a breach and it's in the UK or the US or EU, then it will tell you how you need to respond to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and those regulations can be like very diverse. They're ever changing. Right? Yeah. So any sort of guidance like that you can get hold of is pretty good.
Yeah, and from a SOC perspective, there's people, there's people, there's teams that look, that monitor and make sure, organizations are compliant with these. A SOC not necessarily is going to have the bandwidth as well to cover that scenario, if that makes sense, on how they should respond.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, so it is also great that other partners are sort of, I wouldn't really say, well, they're building new solutions, right, in this relatively new ecosystem. So it's good to see that they're investing in this platform as well. It shows that it's got legs in it, that other people are invested in it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's pretty much it on the security Copilot side. The next area is AI-powered data security investigations and analysis. So let me just jump to my notes on here. Alan, is this something that you could cover for us?
I can briefly, Purview not being my
Whoa! Actually, I think we've established over the last few episodes. Is it Purview? Yeah, I'm sure it is Purview. Anyway, go on. Sorry.
Okay, so this is in effect probably just an injustice, but this is enhancing a incident within Defender XDR, and bringing it into being a data security investigation. So, it might be classed as, an insider risk has triggered this, or it could be that we've seen unusual behavior on 365, etc. This then enhance it to say, okay, we now think we may have had a data breach from it. Then go into that deeper dive into the investigation. So being able to use AI to, in effect, for you to scope the environment, basically, I think, to identify what bits you want to sort of look at, what has been exposed to the incident, and then you can allow generative AI to then search, filter all of that data,
Yeah.
investigate that data to understand what data is there, what's the sensitivity to your organization, so then you can highlight which bits you need to start targeting, what data may have been leaked
Yeah.
or may have been exfiltrated. So
Yeah.
it's prioritizing what data you can see, I think.
Yeah. And you've obviously got, in the incidents view in the Defender portal. This
Hmm.
is really the data representation of that type of system, isn't it? Bringing it all
Yeah.
together in one place, because we've never had this cohesion for data, really,
What?
in one place.
But
We had Activity Explorer, didn't we? That you had to filter through and find all the information. This is
yeah.
like
Well,
in
so
one place, right?
so I guess the difference is that if there was a data breach and it was a Defender XDR incident, what would the thing you'd have to start doing? You'd have to go into the Purview portal, create content searches,
Yeah.
probably, to work out what data may have been touched, all that sort of stuff. This is bringing all of that sort of
Yeah.
incident management for
Yeah.
data security
Yeah.
into the Purview portal in effect. So it does it for you,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I think.
And yeah. No, and that feels right to me, because I started off with Activity Explorer. You went to content search, didn't you? Right. And
Hmm.
like all the data is there, right? But it's not in one cohesive place, is it? As an actual entity in its own right, all being brought together, is it? It's a
No,
collection of tools today.
and like you said, it's going through the activity, through the content searches, etc., to understand what data's been touched or not been touched, all that sort of stuff. That takes the time.
Yeah.
Being able to have something to do the first what do they call it, scan, do the first skim of the environment, tell you where you need to start looking, is going to
Yeah.
be powerful.
Yeah, and I liked as well they had screenshots showing the diagrams of the flow of the data, or the relationships between different types, of entities of data and things like that. So I think it could have definitely done with an overhaul of being able to represent it in a sort of a map or a graph like structure, so that you could actually navigate through it, if that makes sense, right? Because at the moment it's very table driven or export to Excel. This is actually, no, let's actually represent the flow of this data, or the sharing of this data, or the accessing of this data, whatever it is, or the actions placed on that data, in an actual graphical interface, which makes it easier to sort of understand. Right. Okay. What was the next area? We had advances in securing and governing generative AI, and we have seen a lot of investment in generative AI control previously, anyway, haven't we, Alan? More
Hmm.
recently, we've been, shadow AI and generative AI control has been, top of priority for a lot of organizations, for a long time. Sorry, go on. You're going to say something.
No, I was going to say it was. We had at Ignite. The announcement of the data security posture management for AI. Coming in, as well as enhancements into the Defender for Cloud apps. Cloud Discovery report. Adding new AIs into that to be monitored alongside Purview. So yeah, definitely seen more stuff coming in. To start at least getting the visibility of shadow AI.
Yeah, exactly. So, should we go through some of these capabilities? The big focus here is real time access control for shadow AI. So there has been an introduction, and I'm not sure if did you cover this on the news last time with the AI web category filter for Entra internet access. I don't know
No,
if
I
you've.
didn't. It wasn't. It's odd because the updates uh, to Global Secure Access or Internet Access Pro Access don't tend to be in the what's new in Entra for some reason at the moment.
Okay.
So
Because
I've tried to find where the announcements are, because I know of some things coming out through private preview stuff and things like that I can't talk about. But I don't see anything publicly anywhere that I'm aware of anyway. So
yeah,
apart from
I
this,
just, yeah, no, yeah, except for this blog post, but like, yeah, it's just interesting that I could have swore you've talked about this. Anyway, maybe not. Like, I don't know, I can't remember. But anyway, we're getting an AI web category filter for Entra Internet Access. So that's another great protective measure for there. Do you know how complex or sophisticated that web category filter is going to be, Alan? Is it just going to be a blanket?
it's probably just a blanket AI one, I
Yeah,
expect, and then you put you do a block, and then you do an allow on specific.
on what you want to. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Inline discovery and protection of sensitive data. So they're also enhancing the purview data security capabilities for the browser. So there's new inline discovery and protection controls. So Edge, Microsoft Edge for Business can detect and block sensitive data from being sent to AI apps in real time, even if typed directly. So this can help prevent sensitive data leaks as users interact with consumer AI applications that you may not control. We're not saying these are necessarily inherently unsafe, but we do want to understand what applications people are inputting data into, and generative AI has sort of exploded that trend today.
Yeah, and I think it's against certain AIs, isn't it? I think it's ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and DeepSeek is the first ones, and Copilot's already covered really as it being first party. But
yeah, and I think there is a note about it extending the existing DLP controls for Edge for Business. So what I believe is this is just more sophisticated targeting, monitoring, and blocking of those specific applications, more than just sort of generic file uploads to sort of anything, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Right. What else did we have in here? Management of AI security posture across multi-cloud and multi-model in environments. So today, Microsoft Defender for Cloud supports deploy AI workloads across Azure OpenAI, Azure Machine Learning, and Amazon Bedrock. Sorry, I was going to say Red Rock. I don't know why that came into my mind. So they're expanding the AI security posture management capability in Defender for Cloud. So it will now support Google Vertex AI models and enhance support for Azure AI Foundry model catalog and custom models. That's all just words. I'm just blurring it out. So what that feels like to me is that's an expansion of different third-party vendors and products and solutions that are supported, but you will also get more enhanced visibility, such as attack path analysis, vulnerabilities, and recommendations to address those risks in things like Google Vertex AI as well. So again, there's expansion of that AI posture management capability in Defender for Cloud.
It's quite interesting because the AI Foundry bit is actually quite important, because not only is that, because obviously that's got multiple AI, LLMs in there. It basically it's going to cover all of them.
Yeah.
If you use it in Azure, so that's probably quite good from that side.
Yeah. No. Yeah. 100%. Definitely. And this is the thing. I think whenever we get I don't think it really matters that it's AI. Whenever we get some sort of new, I'll call it cloud workload, right? There's just such a breadth of different services and workloads that we have to try and protect, if that makes sense. And some of these are now becoming very, we had sort of application security, intellectual property security, and now we're really talking about sort of data processing management, collaboration that we're having to protect. And this ecosystem is inherently really complex, right? Like all those words that I spoke about and all those different platforms, right? There's thousands of models that will have varying trust levels that can be spun up relatively quickly, right? And that does need to be controlled in some way. So it's definitely not going to slow down, is it?
No.
There is also detection and response capabilities for new AI threats. So Microsoft are announcing threat protection for AI services, a new capability, enhanced threat protection in Defender for Cloud, enabling organizations to secure custom AI applications by detecting and responding to emerging AI threats more effectively. It builds on top of the OWASP top 10 risks for LLM applications, and it addresses the critical vulnerabilities highlighted on the top 10 list, such as prompt injections and sensitive information disclosure. So this is essentially applying a threat protection service on your custom AI solutions. So again, it doesn't matter if you're utilizing sort of third-party technology. If you're also building in-house and you're trying to detect suspicious activity or a bad actor inside of your AI application, there is now a product that can help you with that. Generally available on May the 1st as well. Right. I've got to... I've got that. We've talked about Shadow AI, haven't we? New phishing protection in Teams for safer collaboration, which is a great addition to see, because that's another, well, I wouldn't say common attack vector. What it is becoming more prevalent, So again, really good updates there for Defender for Office.
Yeah, so there was already, Defender for Office did have some enhancements or some protections in there, but it was more, it's probably fair to say it's probably things like safe links, things like that, from the URLs. Again, it's going to do some checks, but I think it's the inline or real-time detonations of attachments. That's quite cool.
Yeah, that's essentially
And
having it on par with the protection that's available for email today, right?
Yeah, but I suppose it is real time, but it's as it goes through. But the risk this is, or the risk this is trying to identify, is that new attacks have happened where organizations allow anyone, I'm going to say anyone in the world, but anyone with a Teams tenant to, in effect, to communicate with you. So you could have someone say, "Hey, I'm from Z company. Please can you, fill out this form, to do your taxes. I don't know, whatever it might be." And then you just click on it. It goes past, all the email checks and everything, because it's just over Teams.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and like you say, that sort of attack vector, for an insecured tenant is trivial to exploit, isn't it? Right, we're literally talking about somebody just sending a message, and it might not even, there could potentially not even be a warning there, right? So
no, and it could be phishing related, couldn't it? Someone could really have sort themselves out, named the tenant, the name, everything. It's another attack vector.
Yeah, well, it would take 2 seconds to look up the, financial controller's name on LinkedIn, find somebody in their team, and
find a post about that where they've done a deal with another organization. Say
organization name one at on Microsoft.com, right?
Yeah.
And then you're away, aren't you? At that point, right? Because their name is even going to show properly in Teams as well, right? So it could, it's very dangerous. So any collaboration protection that we can put in place, because phishing is top of the king of the hill, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else that you want to cover from Secure, Alan? Anything you think we've missed?
I don't think there's anything else my side, I think the agents are interesting. It'd be interesting to see how they're costed as well. So
Yes. Yeah. And how, yeah, that's true. I think my key takeaway is I think what excites me, okay, is AI is like a data security problem, isn't it?
mhm.
Right? Not from a, okay, so I'm not talking about agents and security copilot because that makes sense to me. Different roles and different tasks you're having to perform, getting this more optimized.
You're,
But
you're talking generally AI, aren't you?
yeah, like because when people say like, "Oh, I want to monitor what people are uploading to ChatGPT," I'm like, "Well, why don't you care about what people are uploading to Dropbox?" Right?
Yeah.
Or like people's personal Gmail. Like it's all this. It doesn't
USB
matter.
drive.
It doesn't matter if the Bluetooth transfer to another device or they're printing. I don't care what it is, right? Um, so I really am excited that people are thinking about the lineage of data. Yeah, they're having to because they're being dragged there by the scaremongering of things like DeepSeek, right?
Yeah.
That that problem is now being put at the forefront of people's minds. It took generative AI to take us there, but today we have spoken about, yes, we spoke about the agents for a long time, but we also talked about a lot of data security controls. Yeah, because
Mhm.
I think a lot of organizations aren't at a point where they could even conceivably take data security as a concern that they're tracking day to day. Yeah, because I hear from a lot of people that are saying, hey, we need to do DLP. We need to protect against insider risk. But I only have a team of 2 people, and I don't, I can't afford another headcount to manage all of these tools. Yeah. And that is a very valid concern. But I think a lot of these tools are now making it as easy as possible for people to start, drinking that Kool-Aid, right? And starting getting value from that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
definitely. And,
yeah,
and like you said, it's the extra head count that's the problem, really, of being able to do it because it's something that's not been envisioned, and it. I get the feeling sometimes it's put on upon current teams that are already maxed out or in a different discipline. I think that's fair to say as well. It goes to
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
the sec admin or secops team. They're like, well, what regulatory compliance do I need to look at? Or I need to read all these controls now
yeah,
and
yeah.
things
And
like that.
to a lot of people that I talk to, content search is the only thing that they've even looked at in Purview, even if they're licensed for it, because it's the reactionary part that they need to do e-discovery, if that makes
Yeah,
sense, right? Um, you know, little did they know that they could, block people from, I don't know,
actually doing it. Yeah,
putting those controls in place. And now I know you need to have that knowledge on how to configure that, and you need to have the time in order to manage it. So I'm not saying this is just like a, enable it and forget about it. And you've also got to be licensed for it as well. But I do
hmm
like the fact that generative AI is pushing that narrative, and people can't really hide away from it because nobody can hide away from generative AI today, can they? Because it's as much it is a complete hype fest, it is real and there is benefit to it, and it's not going to go away, is it? At least in the short term,
correct.
So, and the fund back to my original point, the fundamental problem is not generative AI's problem. It's data lineage which leads to leakage, right? Like that's the true problem.
Yeah,
And it brings that all into focus. So, as much as adding more generative AI capability to Security Copilot doesn't, it does excite me, but it doesn't in some way because of how it's modeled and how you use it. But that's beside the point. But what it is doing is it's showing these capabilities that teams should be following. Right? You should be doing conditional access optimization. Yeah? Conditional access isn't just like a one and done thing. It needs to be checked. periodically. It needs to
Yeah.
be gap filled and fixed, and somebody needs to own it, don't they? And if you can't pay for somebody in your organization to own it, then you could use an agent to help you own that.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, you're right. You're talking about two things here. You're talking about an AI service that helps with security, it's Security Copilot, and its enhancements. But you've got the other flip to it is that the purview side is looking at how AI is being used and preventing your data leakage and everything. So it's the you got a security tool that is using generative AI to help with security operations, etc., to enhance you. But then you've got the other side of it of monitoring Gen AI and understanding what it's doing and protecting data. So that it's more of a
and we're using generative AI as the Trojan horse to get people to really start to understand data security, because people
data security and their data, where it is,
data governance, lineage, where it lives, blah blah blah, all those things. It's then because they go, oh crap, we need to think about like how we actually control this. And I know Microsoft's putting in a load of like real-time protection, like DLP in the browser. We're seeing these extensions to these generative AI apps, which is great. So they are putting those sort of quick win blockers in place, but it does open that narrative.
Yeah, at the same time though, those controls, you need to know what you want to protect.
100,
if you don't know what 100%. You need to protect, then it's no good to you, if that makes sense in some way.
100%. Absolutely 100%. So, and we're now seeing everything move from the network to the agent, or the endpoint, sorry, agents on endpoints, right? So we are naturally seeing that shift where, web filtering and DLP is now not an on-prem network, as much of an on-prem network focus anymore, because of hybrid working and traveling and remote, blah blah blah. It has to be on the endpoint, doesn't it, because of zero trust on those boxes. So this is all endpoint based, which is great, for us basically, because that's the way people are going. Anyway, we should probably stop ranting, because we've been nearly talking for as long as the actual secure video was, which so I don't know. TLDR, you should probably just go watch that video instead of listening to this podcast. But if you got to this point, you're kind of invested anyway. So, right, Alan, anything else from Secure? I think we've just been ranting for the past 5 minutes.
No. Okay. I think I've covered we had loads to cover. So
yeah, we did. Yeah, exactly. Okay, great. And hopefully we'll start to see some of these technologies being deployed, made generally available. I definitely want to go take these agents for a spin. I'll even pay for it in my own dev tenant, even though it won't be a real test. But anyway, we should definitely give them a go and see how good they are. Next episode, Alan, is going to be news, I suppose, for April next week.
We can just fit it in. So...
Yeah, exactly. So so next week will be news for April, because of the way that the dates fit for start of March.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Yeah, all good.
Okay.
So did you enjoy this episode? If so, please do consider leaving us a review on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. That really helps us to reach out to more people like yourselves. If you do have any feedback or suggestions around episodes, there'll be a link in our show notes.
Yeah, and if you made it this far, thanks ever so much for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.
Yep, thanks all.